Good morning. Welcome to Wednesday in the Word. We're in the book of James, chapter 4 this morning. We're going to kind of center our thoughts on the first 6 verses, but the last verse is the one I'm going to read to you this morning. But he, that is God, gives more grace. Therefore, he says, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Now we've made a shift here at the end of the third chapter of the book of James. James writing to the Christians, new Christians, saved, baptized, joined with the church people gathered with them there in Jerusalem, now scattered abroad across the world. And the pastor James is looking at this and seeing what's going on in the world, and he's warning these Christians that, well, to put it in our thinking, when revival fires are burning, when church camp is going on, when when we're in the midst of a great worship service, boy, we're ready to whip the world for Jesus. But now we're going to get out into the world in our daily lives. We're going to be faced with decisions day after day. The latter part of chapter 3, he warned them against choosing earthly wisdom over heavenly wisdom. They were saved by God's grace. Now they could walk in the ways of God. But they would constantly, in their own nature, be drawn back to trying to do things as men in their own nature and making those kinds of choices. Well, that wasn't a positive thing. You see, he says here, God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. It is a simple and yet a willingly ignored truth by God's people today. We think we know all the answers. We have our money, we have our buildings, we have our programs, we have all kinds of things in the world. As far as Christians, we have Christian books, Christian literature. We have all these tools that we can use for the honor and glory of God. But sometimes it's not about the honor and glory of God, is it? It becomes more about what we seek rather than what God desires. We live in a world that, as we look around, is struggling. Fightings and wars, he says early in chapter 4, are among you. They're within you, they're between you, and even in our world today, we see this anger, this division, this bitterness of our own situation here in the United States. We see it acted out in other parts of the world, in wars and in struggles, conflicts all over the globe. What is this a sign of? This is a sign of satanic wisdom being exercised rather than heavenly wisdom. Heavenly wisdom, the result is peace. The devil's wisdom, the result is strife. Simple, honest, very easy to understand. When you see your life bringing strife, you're following earthly wisdom. When you're bringing peace and thoughts of peace are in your heart and mind, then you're following the Lord. Period. Now, he talks here about their prayer life. He says, you have not because you ask not. And you ask and you don't ask because you're going to spend it on your own pleasures. You have divided yourself from God. You have chosen Satan's wisdom. So you have moved away from following the Lord, the narrow way. You're moving off the narrow way, and you're seeking the things over there on the other side. And because of that, you realize that. You begin to lose your prayer life. And why do you lose your prayer life? Because the Spirit within you knows. God's not going to answer that prayer. That's a prayer that is simply prayed for your own desires, to please yourself. And if you can't please yourself, and if you don't want to, you're not going to ask God, you just forsake the place of prayer. Well, you know where the place of prayer is? The house of God is the house of prayer, Jesus said in the New Testament and the Old. So, God's children have forsaken his house. They walk away. They only ask for God or ask for prayers when they're in trouble, when they're sick, when they're hurting. They don't pray, as the model prayer teaches us, Father, your will be done, right? we find ourselves in the midst of daily struggles. Men have forsaken God. They have chosen friendship with the world over friendship with God. Are these lost people, unsaved people? Of course. But more to the point for us in our devotional time is this can be us if we start listening to the world's wisdom. God resists the proud. When we forsake Him, when we make ourselves a friend of the world, when we choose our pleasure over God's will, we become estranged. Enmity, James says, against God. We're against God. May God bless us with this truth and warn us, and let us look at our lives. See the fruit of your life. What is its yield? Does it yield strife, trouble, or does it yield peace? May God bless you.